The biggest screens on iPhones yet, a new camera control button, and Apple Intelligence coming soon. This is the new iPhone 16 Pro and iPhone 16 Pro Max. I've had them for just about a week now, and here are my thoughts. Let's kick off by seeing what you get inside the box. So firstly, we do have 100% recycled boxes, which is great. I've got the natural titanium color for the iPhone 16 Pro and the new desert titanium for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. As well as the devices, inside the box you do get a nice USB Type-C to USB Type-C braided cable. There's a SIM card tool and there is some paperwork, but no Apple sticker. Now, as far as I'm aware, you can go into an Apple store and get some stickers if you want, but they no longer come included out of the box. Now, if you are based in the US, then you will not have a SIM card tool because US versions of the iPhone only have eSIMs. So for any of the wise asses in the comments saying these are fake iPhones because there is a SIM card tool, understand that there is a world outside of America. And here they are side by side. In terms of the colors, of course, the desert titanium is the new color. It kind of gives me a vibe of being between gold and rose gold that we've seen from Apple previously. And undoubtedly, because this is the new color, replaces the blue titanium from last year, it will be the most popular, and it seems to be the most popular from polls. The natural titanium, I would say, looks pretty much exactly the same as we had last year. And then we've got a deeper black titanium and a brighter white titanium. Now, personally, I'm a little bit biased, but I do think that the black titanium looks best. But I also do like this natural titanium. However, if you are somebody who wants to show everybody that you've got the new iPhone, then you're going to be able to do that easiest with the new desert titanium. Now, with the amount of times that I've said the word titanium, you've probably already realized that the iPhone 16 Pros do have a titanium frame like we had on the iPhone 15 Pros. Now, this is grade 5 titanium. I absolutely love this. And we do have a new refined micro blasted finish. Now, the iPhone 16 Pros do have the latest generation ceramic shield front. So we've had ceramic shield on iPhones for a few years now, but this is the second generation, which is supposed to be 50% tougher than the first generation. And also, Apple said in their keynote, 2 times tougher than any other smartphone. I am not going to be testing this, as I always say. I'm going to wait for Zach and others to do some drop and scratch tests, and we can really see how much more durable this is. If you've pre-ordered one of the new iPhones, you're going to want to protect your investment with a case from our video sponsor, ESR. ESR cases give you the ultimate protection and can withstand drops of up to 23 feet. My personal favorite thing about ESR cases is the stash stand. Now, cases with a kickstand are generally pretty bulky and uncomfortable to hold, but the ESR stash stand is smartly integrated around the camera module and is super slim. It also doesn't interfere with MagSafe like other cases with kickstands may do. Speaking of MagSafe, ESR cases are equipped with a strong magnetic lock that offers double the strength of other cases, meaning your MagSafe accessories will snap on and stay secure. There's a range of cases to choose from: the Cloud Soft for a comfortable feel and colorful design, the Cyber Tough case for ultimate drop protection, and my personal favorite, the classic hybrid case, which lets you show off your new iPhone while keeping it protected. You can also get the ESR Armorite screen protector, which has a simple 2-step application and can withstand 110 pounds of edge pressure. Check out the link in the description to see all of the ESR iPhone 16 cases, and make sure you're protected as soon as you get your new iPhone. We have IP68 water and dust resistance as expected, and the iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max are slightly larger and heavier compared to the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. Now, the size difference is probably a little bit more noticeable on the iPhone 16 Pro versus the iPhone 15 Pro, but honestly speaking, using the iPhone 16 Pro Max coming straight from the iPhone 15 Pro Max, in my day-to-day over the past week, I've really not noticed much of a difference at all. And if you are coming from an older iPhone that had a stainless steel frame, then these new Pro versions with the titanium frame will still be a little bit lighter. Now, one of the main reasons for the larger size of these new iPhone Pros is because we do have large displays. The iPhone 16 Pro now has a 6.3-inch display, which is up from 6.1 inches on the iPhone 15 Pro. The iPhone 16 Pro Max now has a 6.9-inch display, up from the 6.7 inches on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, they've been able to achieve this not only from the larger size, but also because of these tiny bezels. The bezels are super small and they're uniform, and the displays are really good. We've got OLED technology, we've got the same pixel density, so you're not compromising there at all. They have ProMotion technology, so we've got 120 Hz refresh rate. They support always on displays, and we have the dynamic island. Now, I've talked about the dynamic island before. I like it for animations and notifications, but I don't personally interact with it being the topmost part of the screen. And the brightness does remain the same. So both of these have a 2000 nits peak brightness outdoors, but we do get a lower minimum peak brightness of 1 nit. So this is if you're like me and you like to use your smartphone in the dark in bed. Now, having said that, I do like to have my devices even darker. So I have personally set up an accessibility shortcut. You can do this pretty easily, even on previous iPhones, by adding a shortcut to your control center to accessibility settings and reduce white point. This lets you make your iPhone even dimmer than it would be, and it makes it much easier on the eyes when you are in the dark. You can also easily assign this accessibility shortcut to the action button. So once again, accessibility settings and then reduce white point. Now, speaking of the action button, this is something that Apple introduced last year on the Pro models, and it is very useful for shortcuts to put your phone on silent mode, start a voice memo, or pretty much trigger anything that you want on your iPhone via shortcuts. Now, my feedback with the action button was that yes, it's very useful, but it is the topmost button. So for occasional shortcuts, it's fine, but for something that you're going to be using frequently, it's not very reachable. And I would have preferred if it was somewhere towards the bottom, and it could also be used as a trigger for the camera. Now, although Apple hasn't moved the action button, they now have a brand new button, which is the camera control. Apple do not call it a button, they just call it a camera control, which was super confusing during the hands-on, because I can confirm it is a physical button that has haptics. It's not just a haptic button. And sure, it's more than just a button, but it still is a button. Now let's talk about the camera control. So firstly, the positioning I think is perfect. Usually, if you're using your phone in landscape mode to take a picture, it'd probably make more sense to have it closer towards the bottom. But this camera control button is supposed to be for both portrait and landscape use. Now, pressing this camera control button once will launch the camera. Pressing it again will be the trigger button to take photos. And if you press and hold, then that will start recording a video until you unpress. Now, realistically speaking, I think a lot of people will just use the camera control button just for that, just to launch the camera, take pictures and videos. But there is more to it. If you press lightly, then you've got some different settings that you can use. By default, you will have the zoom control, which you can swipe up and down to zoom in and out. I personally don't like this because it means sometimes you'll be in between lenses, which won't give you the best optical quality. So if you press lightly twice, you'll have a selection of settings: exposure, depth, zoom, cameras, styles, and tone. I would personally put it on to cameras, so you can switch between the ultra wide, the primary, 2x zoom, which is still lossless, and then 5x optical zoom. Now, I have to say, in the past week that I've been using this, it does take a little bit of time to get used to, but once you're used to it, it's like second nature. And I am so glad that this camera control button is here, and it is very, very useful. A couple of points of feedback. I would say that the swipe gestures are sometimes not triggered. You have to kind of swipe really from up to down. I think Apple may have done this to make it not too sensitive and prevent accidental swipes, but I would have liked it to be a little bit more sensitive so I can switch through easily rather than having to do this every single time. And the other thing I would say, and this is just something that I would personally have liked, is to have had Touch ID embedded within the camera control, because this would be so useful for me personally anyway. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Face ID. It works great. It works great on the iPhone 16 Pros, and it has worked great on the iPhones for many, many years. But my issue is always whenever I'm using my smartphone in bed, my face is tucked into the pillow and I can't unlock my phone. And there's actually been an instance last week when I managed to block myself out of my banking app because I just couldn't get it to unlock with Face ID. Now, having Touch ID within the camera control button would solve this issue because I could just use my fingerprint. I don't even know what the technicalities behind that would be, and people from Apple's engineering are probably saying, what is this guy talking about? But anyway, this is just something that I would have liked. Now let's talk about the cameras. Hey, do you want to remind them of the camera comparison? Oh yeah. Thanks, SuperSaf, for reminding me that we have been working on a SuperSaf style camera comparison of the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. And I've been taking hundreds of images and videos over the past week. I'm going to be combining those all together, and that video is going to be going live in the next couple of days. If you want to see that first, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss it. But to give you an overview, the iPhone 16 Pros have amazing cameras as expected. We've got tons of detail and dynamic range. The selfie camera hasn't changed in terms of the hardware as far as I can see. It's still 12 megapixels, but it still takes excellent selfies. But we have had some changes for the rear-facing cameras. So as far as I can see, the primary camera is the same when it comes to the hardware, 48 megapixels, although we do have a new image signal processor, which will allow you to take pictures faster. The telephoto camera on the iPhone 16 Pro Max is still 5x, and it takes excellent photos, especially portraits. The iPhone 16 Pro now also gets the 5x telephoto camera, which we didn't have on the iPhone 15 Pro that had a 3x telephoto camera. Now, the new camera that we have is the 48 megapixel ultra wide camera. So this now has a high resolution. It also has autofocus for macro images. And so far, all of the cameras have been performing very well in my testing, as you can see on screen. One of the new things that we have is the latest generation of Photographic Styles. We've had Photographic Styles for a few years now on iPhones, and although this was a nice feature, I didn't actually find myself using the Photographic Styles in previous generations of the iPhones. And that's because once you set a particular photographic style and you took a photo, that would be baked in. And I didn't really like that because I wouldn't like a particular photographic style for every one of my photos. Say, for instance, I'm taking a picture of a landscape. I might want things to be a bit more vibrant, but not when I'm taking pictures of people. With the latest generation of photographic styles, you can choose a photographic style to take a picture, but then you can change it after the fact because a lot of that data is stored within the image. It's not just like applying a filter to an image like you do on Instagram. And this does give you a pretty high level of control over the images. You can go in and tweak things just the way you like. So if you feel that the images that come out as standard are a bit too flat and too natural and you want to give them a bit of a punch, then you can do that afterwards. And this is something that I absolutely love, and it's definitely a welcome update. Now for the video, as I always say, iPhones take some of the best video out there. You can see some samples here on screen. One of the new things that we've got on the iPhone 16 Pros is 4K 120 frames a second. Now this is limited to the primary camera. And yes, we have seen 4K 120 frames a second from other smartphones, but I believe this is the first time we've got 4K 120 FPS with HDR and Dolby Vision. I've been doing some testing, and here's some footage of me on a trampoline to give you an idea. Now, one of the things that I love about slow motion of the new iPhones is that you can go into the Photos app and you can choose the speed at which they're played back. So even if you've shot something at 4K 120 frames a second, you can still play it back at normal speed if you'd like. We also have spatial videos and spatial photos. So this is going to be useful if you are one of the few people that owns an Apple Vision Pro. And we now have 4 studio quality mics with wind noise reduction. And in terms of my impressions over the past week is that the iPhone 16 Pros record exceptional quality audio, especially with audio mix. So if you record videos with spatial audio, you're going to be able to go in to the clip later and then isolate vocals with in-frame, get studio quality or cinematic sound as well. And this works really well. Here's an example with a washing machine in the background. Audio test with some background noise. As you can see, we've got a washing machine running here in the background. Let's see how much of that background noise the iPhone 16 Pro Max can cancel out with audio mix. Once again, just a reminder that I am working on a SuperSaf style camera comparison. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to see it first. If you're watching this video a few days later, then maybe that video is already live and it will be linked down in the description. Right now, let's talk about performance. As expected, the iPhone 16 Pros are some of the best performing smartphones out there we have the A18 Pro, which is the second generation 3nm chip. In terms of the numbers, 20% faster GPU, 15% faster CPU, 2 times faster ray tracing, 20% improvement in sustained performance, as well as 20% less power consumption. Now, I'm not somebody who really goes deep into benchmarks and things like that. My friend Enabong from Board at Work has done a gaming test, which I will link down in the description below. But in terms of my experience of using these, anything that you throw at them, absolutely fine. Now let's talk about the software. So the iPhone 16s do come with iOS 18 out of the box, and you can finally rearrange your icons as you wish. You don't have to have them in a grid format. You can put them down, you can spread them out and space them out based on the wallpaper that you've got. Now, you can see here for me, I've got my icons towards the bottom. I don't like things too busy and cluttered. I like to have things a little bit more clean, but I still feel like things are a little bit too spaced out and not utilizing this huge display that we've got, because we're still limited to 4 columns. I would like to have 5 columns at least. And again, there's this big gap here. Why can't we move things a little bit more towards the bottom? Now, you can also change the theme. You can have the dark theme, which I personally do like. The only issue with this is not all apps have that dark theme. So you can see here that the Instagram icon really stands out. You can also have a tinted theme where you can choose the color and the intensity of whatever you want there. I know lots of designers are going to be going crazy when they see the results of iOS 18 on lots of different people's devices. Personally, I do like to have the brand app colors just because I find it's a little bit more easier to differentiate them. But regardless, I'm very happy that we do have these customizations finally. Now, Apple Intelligence. Let's talk a little bit about Apple Intelligence. So out of the box, you will not be getting Apple Intelligence. Apple Intelligence will be coming sometime in October, and it will be available first for English US. So if you are outside of the US, you still may be able to access them, like for example here in the UK, but you will have to set your language to English US. Now, I think Apple Intelligence warrants a separate video once it is properly out. But just to give you an overview of what you can expect, I think the key thing about Apple Intelligence is its emphasis on privacy and personal context. I actually did an interview with Tim Cook at DubDub. You can check out that video. That's going to be linked down in the description below, where we discuss some of this. Some of the features I'm looking forward to checking out: the writing tools, where you'll be able to summarize text. You're going to be able to proofread or rewrite things. Priority notifications, which will appear at the top of the stack. Priority messages in mail. The ability to summarize long emails. Smart reply to quickly draft an email response with all of the right details. Being able to record audio and then generate transcripts and summaries from them. You can reduce interruptions, and Apple Intelligence will be able to understand the context of your notifications, and it will show you the ones that might need immediate attention, like say for instance there is an emergency with one of your family members. Genmoji will be pretty fun, using the image wand to turn a rough sketch into a related image. Image Playground, creating an entirely new image based on a description, suggested concepts, or even someone from your photos library. The cleanup tool in the Photos app if you want to remove people from the background, which I've tested at Apple. And Siri is going to be much more deeply integrated into the system experience. So it's going to have richer language understanding, and it's also going to have on-screen awareness. And you will also have ChatGPT available, which will be seamlessly integrated. Now, once again, all of these features I hope to cover in more detail once they are publicly available in October. So stay tuned for that. Now let's talk about the batteries. So I don't have the specific size increase of the batteries. However, we do have larger batteries both in the iPhone 16 Pro and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Not only that, because we have the A18 Pro, which is more efficient, you will be getting better battery life on the iPhone 16 Pro and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now, I've primarily been using the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I've definitely noticed an improvement in battery life. Having said that, I have been using my iPhone 15 Pro Max for a year, and I switched straight from it. Obviously, the battery life that I'm used to on the iPhone 15 Pro Max will have deteriorated over time. But even so, if I look at my usage based on what I had with the iPhone 15 Pro Max at the start, I'd still say that I've got around about a 10% improvement, which is very welcomed. In addition to that, we have faster wireless charging. So we've got Qi to wireless charging. So you're going to be able to get up to 15 watts using a Qi wireless compatible charger. But MagSafe has had quite a big improvement. We've gone up from 15 watts to 25 watts. Now, there's a few things to note about this new MagSafe update. Firstly, you will need a new MagSafe charging puck. This is the one that's going to have the braided cable, and it's going to be able to achieve 25 watts of MagSafe charging. And you will also need to have a 30-watt adapter or higher. So maybe something that you've got with your MacBook Pro or your iPad, or you're just gonna have to go out and buy a 30-watt charger to be able to achieve those speeds. In terms of some of the other features, we do have stereo speakers. They sound very, very good. We've got emergency SOS via satellite and emergency SOS live video as well. Thankfully, I've not had to use it. You've also got roadside assistance via satellite, as well as crash detection. One of the new things that we've got on the iPhone 16 Pros is Wi-Fi 7. So if you do have a compatible router, you're going to be able to get some very fast speeds. Now, I know most people probably won't have a Wi-Fi 7 router as yet, but I like that this is future-proofed. And finally, the price. So the iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max start at the same price as the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max did last year. In the UK and the US, it may be different in other regions. So for the iPhone 16 Pro 128GB version, you're going to be looking at around £1,000 or $1,000. And with the iPhone 16 Pro Max 256GB base model, you're going to be looking at £1,200 or $1,200. Now, as I always say, if you are on last year's iPhone 15 Pros, you don't necessarily need to upgrade. The iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max will be getting Apple Intelligence as well, so you're not really going to be missing out on that. But if you are on an older iPhone and you want the best that Apple has to offer, then this is it here, the iPhone 16 Pro and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I've really enjoyed using these over the past week, and I'm going to carry on using them for the coming year, and I'm going to be doing lots of detailed comparisons, SuperSaf style. Once again, if you haven't already and you want to see those first, then do subscribe and hit that bell icon. What do you think of the new iPhone 16 Pros? Drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to see some of my related videos, they'll be linked here and here. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do smash that like button for me. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.